but he's gonna have to get, it'll have to get readings, won't it?
Yeah, it does have to get some readings. That's right. Well, let's see who shows up, and then we'll go from there. Okay, we got our quorum here, and it's a little after 9 o'clock, so we'll have the clerk call the roll.
Senator Berg, Senator Harper Angel, Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel, Senator Storm, Senator Thayer, Senator Wheeler, Senator Williams, Senator Nemus,
Present.
Senator Mills.
Here. We have a quorum. We've got several things on our agenda, and we've got a bill sponsor that needs to be moved to the head of the line. So we're going to have what was that? House Bill 393 first, which is brought to us by Representative Dixon and President Stivers as well. Ladies and gentlemen, just give your name for the record, and okay. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Jonathan Dixon, Henderson, District 11. I'll let my guests introduce themselves.
I'm Robert Stivers. I'm just a state senator.
Brianna Carroll, Director of Public Affairs for the Kentucky League of Cities.
Okay. Now we have a committee sub that President Stivers will be addressing. So we have a motion on the committee sub, second from Senator Storm. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the committee sub is before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'll let President Stivers explain the committee sub real quick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. It came to my attention working on something that I know Senator McDaniel is well aware of, as well as Senator Harper Angel and Senator Nemus. We have been working to create a situation for the Fair and Exposition Center to upgrade its facilities. And if I'm not badly mistaken, I think Senator McDaniel has a resolution on some monies based on a presentation cutting the money loose for their start on that expansion. One of the key components to this expansion is being able to acquire property that is currently owned by the Jefferson County Public School System. So this committee sub has a portion in it because under our current law, and this is the only one, and I want to thank Brianna and the League of Cities for pointing this out to me, they have a totally different way for which they can dispose of properties, but public school systems do not. They have to declare it surplus inventory, appraise it, and then put it up for public auction. In this situation, this would allow them to get a fair market value if transferring from themselves to one governmental entity or another quasi-governmental entity to basically short-circuit the process, but making sure they are appropriately compensated. So this doesn't apply only to that situation. It would apply in any situation, but that's one that is the one that has brought this to the forefront and got it on my radar and other people's radar.
Good.
Mr. President. Outside of that, committee members, House Bill 393 stays the exact same as it was when introduced into you in the original format. It amends statutes and streamlines municipal procedures related to procurement and disposition of surplus property to codify current practices and address some needed exemptions. Sections 1 through 3 just clarify that local governments are not included in the state procurement code by just changing the word public agency to governmental body. Section 4 just amends requirements on city deposition of surplus property in the statute by permitting the disposition of personal property appraised at $10,000 or less and an independent appraisal to be transferred for its appraisal to that value or a higher value in the bidding process. One note in Section 4 is it permits the retiring of a service animal such as a canine or a horse, that animal would be given back to its trainer at the end of its service. Sections 5 through 6 just provide an exemption in the bidding status in the following types of purchases: products and services provided to a nonprofit or other business or organization in the city that the main mission of the business or the purpose of serving, the business purpose of serving individuals with disabilities, mental, physical, and recovery from substance abuse disorders by offering transitional or supported employment services or rehabilitative programs. Section 5 just basically allows the cities to, if they have a entity that is a nonprofit, to circumvent the bidding process and be able to choose those. One stipulation that's in the bill is that if there are 2 or more of those services offered by the same nonprofit, that they would have to then fall back on the procurement process. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that is House Bill 393 in its form now.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a second from Senator Nemus. Ms. Carroll, would you like to say anything?
No.
Okay. Yeah, we did. We can go first. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Byrd, Senator Harper Angel, Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel,
Aye.
Senator Nemus,
Aye.
Senator Storm,
Aye.
Senator Thayer, Senator Wheeler, Senator Williams, Senator Mills.
I vote aye. House Bill 393 is amended by committee sub, passes with a vote of 8-0, and with it passed with favorable expression, with the expression the same shall pass on to the Senate floor. So, thank you so much. And there is a title amendment. Can we have a? We have a motion. Is there a second? Second from Senator Storm. All in favor, say aye on the title amendment. Aye. Any opposed? Title amendment is adopted. Thank you so much. Is there a motion for consent? We have a motion for consent from Senator McDaniel. Is there a second? Second from Senator Harper Angel. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item moves on to consent. Thank you so
Mr.
much.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members.
Next, I see Representative Weber. You want to come on up? We'll take people as they are here. Representative Weber has House Bill 587, and Ms. Carroll will join him as well. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Russell Weber, State Representative, House District 26.
Brianna Carroll, Director of Public Affairs, Kentucky League of Cities.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, House Bill 587 places the internal auditor in the Public Pension Authority along with the executive director. There are several reasons why we're doing this. The Internal Professional Practices Framework of the Red Book contains standards and implementation guidance to be used by auditors. The standards indicate that independence can be achieved through a dual reporting relationship. In those cases, the standards require functional reporting to the board and recommend administrative reporting to the CEO. Section 1100, the internal audit activity must be independent, and internal auditors must be objective in performing their work. Implementation guidance to achieve the degree of independence necessary to carry out internal auditing responsibilities effectively. The chief audit executive has direct and unrestricted access to senior management and the board. Section 1110, the chief audit executive must report to a level within the organization that allows the internal auditor activity to fulfill its responsibilities. Implementation guidance, organizational independence is effectively achieved when the chief audit executive reports functionally to the board. Section 1100.A1, the internal audit activity must be free from interference in determining the scope of internal auditing, performing work, and communicating results. And Section 1111, the chief audit executive must communicate and interact with the board. House Bill 587 ensures transparency and removes concerns about the potential for collusion and interference by amending the direct reporting structure of the internal auditor to report directly to the KPPA board. The board is comprised of members of the County Employees Retirement System and the Kentucky Retirement Systems.
Very good. Any questions of Representative Weber regarding House Bill 587? Motion on the bill. Second. We have a motion from Senator Thayer, second from Senator Nemus. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Byrd, Senator Harper Angel, Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel,
Aye.
Senator Nemus, Senator Storm,
Aye.
Senator Thayer, Senator Wheeler, Senator Williams, Senator Mills.
I vote aye. House Bill 587 passes with favorable expression 8-0. And we have a motion for consent. Senator Thayer, second from Senator Williams. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Very good. This item
Thank you,
moves on
members.
to consent as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is Representative Bauman here?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Alrighty. About Representative Dietz is here? Oh, very good. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome, and bring your staff or support folks up to the table. If you could introduce yourselves. This is House Bill 534. Representative Dietz, welcome to our committee, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Stephanie Dietz. I represent the 65th District, which, just so that you all know, is a part of Kenton County. And I'll let my guests introduce themselves.
Thank you, Representative Dietz. I'm Mark Collier. I am Chief Operations Officer at Link Northern Kentucky.
Good morning, Chris Knockelman, Kenton County Judge Executive.
Very good. Welcome, folks, and the floor is yours.
House Bill 534 will amend KRS 424-145 and 424-120 by allowing a digital publication to qualify as the paper of record if it meets certain criteria. We worked with the Kentucky Press Association on a sub, so we have an agreement with them. The legislation will allow the local governments to publish their notices digitally, and it promotes transparency and efficiency. The committee sub added to the paper of record that it'll be deemed to be of regular issue if it is the only qualified paper in the county, and remove the words publication area and has a paid circulation equal to at least 10% of the population of the publication area. Northern Kentucky has been without a paper of record physically located in Boone, Campbell, or Kenton counties since the recorder papers were shut down in 2022. This means the paper of record for these three counties is currently not physically located in any of the three counties and is not actively reporting on the issues that matter to Kentuckians. This situation is a byproduct of outdated statutes that prevent digital publications from qualifying for this important designation and precludes local governments from publishing notices in legal forms, in digital form. This legislation updates these statutes. I can say today that we have the support of the Boone, Campbell, and Kenton fiscal courts, the Northern Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, the Transit Authority of Northern Kentucky, Boone County Circuit Clerk, Planning and Development Services of Kenton County, Campbell County Economic Progress Authority, Northern Kentucky Triad Economic Services, and the Northern Kentucky Port Authority, and with the sub, the Kentucky Press Association. I will now turn this just briefly over. If there are no questions, I can turn it over briefly to my guests. Otherwise, I would.
Can I ask just a clarifying question?
Yes.
You referred to a sub. That was your House sub.
That's
is that correct?
correct.
Okay, there is no sub or Senate
Correct.
sub. Correct. Yeah, continue.
I'll turn it over to Mr. Collier.
Since Link Northern Kentucky was established, we had one goal and one mission. That was to bring information and transparency to the people of Northern Kentucky. We have 10 full-time editorial staff members in our newsroom, 22 contributors providing anything from city and county coverage to local sports to events of public notice. When the community recorder paper shuttered in early of 2022, it was not our goal to stand in as paper of record, but we filled that void to provide transparency, communication, and efforts to our community. So this HB 534, when we've worked together with the counties and the cities, the Kentucky Press Association, it helps modernize and move government a little bit faster, more efficiently, and more transparently. I'm very proud to stand with our legislative members today, our county officials, and the Kentucky Press Association to move forward with its passage.
Very good. Judge, would you like to say something?
Sure, other than just a full support of it, and I think regardless of who the entity is or what the entity is for our newspaper of record, the idea being that it's all about transparency and efficiency so that we can get more word out to the public, they can be more aware, do it less expensively, and make sure that is a model that's, quite frankly, we all should support. And probably we should have worked on this a decade ago. So it's very, very needed, and would appreciate your support.
Very good. Senator Thayer has a question or comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge, good to see you. Mark, Representative Dietz, welcome to the committee. You know, when I first moved to Kentucky over 30 years ago, I lived and worked in northern Kentucky. And we had 3 news sources. We had the Kentucky Enquirer was the morning paper, the Kentucky Post was the afternoon paper, and then each county had a weekly, the Boone, Kenton, and Campbell County Recorder. Just goes to show you what's happening in the world of newspapers and news gathering and news reporting. Link has done a great job filling that role. I look forward to seeing it get even bigger as the years go by. So, Representative Dietz, I appreciate you bringing the bill. And, Mr. Chairman, I'd move that House Bill 534 be reported favorably. Motion same shall pass.
We have a motion and a second, but we have a couple more questions. Senator Williams, and then
Yes. So I fully support this. I mean, we need that, and I think I'm included in your publication area, although in the primary it wasn't noted.
hey, turn your mic on. Turn your mic on.
Sorry. Yes, I do support it. I'm looking forward to connecting Northern Kentucky with the rest of Kentucky, as does my district. However, I do have a question for my other 4 counties up here, and it really has to do with on page 5 of 8 here, qualified paper and substituting county and taking out publication area and paid circulation. My concern is everywhere else here we talk about the the publication area and the local government. Here we shift back to county. And so my concern is that this may affect a county that is not over 80,000 because the local government is limited to 80,000. So I'm concerned about some of the smaller counties and the smaller local papers, and this may have an impact upon them. Am I misreading it, or how are they not included in that piece there?
Senator Williams, thank you. This was part of the agreement that we reached with the Kentucky Press Association, so this was verbiage they wanted. It actually is going to protect some of the smaller papers, so we left the 80,000 in there, and it's really for paper of record. So there were 2 smaller media sources they were worried about, one out of Louisville and one out of Daviess County. When we looked at those, one wouldn't have met the qualifications. It was a blog only. The other one would have been competing with the Louisville Courier-Journal, so it wouldn't have been applicable to them. So this was protective language that actually the press asked for. So I don't think this is going to do any damage to the smaller newspapers. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I know they don't. I'm still not convinced it won't. So maybe we can talk about this later. Again, just want to make sure that the substitution of county instead of local government isn't having some unintended side effect here.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Nemes has a question.
Well, my question's pretty much in line with Senator Williams. We have a very good paper, the Pioneer News in Bullock County, and it looks like it might be putting them out of businesses. Can you answer that?
I don't believe that it will, and that's certainly not the intention, is to put small newspapers under. I originally grew up in Woodford County, and I can tell you we like to get the Woodford Sun on Wednesday nights, so that's not our intention at all. What we put that qualifying language in there was really to protect the small newspapers. And forgive me, but with Bullock County, I'm just wondering if your paper of record, if that's the Louisville Courier-Journal or some other, so I don't know that it would compete with that.
I think it would be the Pioneer News.
I don't think that it's going to affect the intent of what this is.
Senator Thayer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I can help allay Senator Nemes's concern. The executive director of the Kentucky Press Association is a neighbor of mine, and he reached out over the weekend to tell me that they support this bill, and I'm pretty sure they wouldn't support it if it was going to have a deleterious effect on small newspapers. And isn't this written just particularly for Boone, Kenton, and Campbell County in northern Kentucky?
That is,
Or is this the only place affected by it? the way
this
it's
will be
written?
the only place that we believe is affected by it is Boone, Kenton, and Campbell counties. And to your point, Senator Thayer, I also received an email from David Thompson this morning indicating that he was your neighbor and that he had talked to you over the weekend and that he is supportive of this bill as well.
A lot of people moving into my neighborhood lately. I can't imagine why.
Senator Wheeler?
Just to back up what Senator Thayer said, I also publisher of my local paper over the weekend, and they're all behind this bill. So,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Byrd, Senator Harper Angel, Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel,
Aye.
Senator Nemus,
Can I explain my vote?
Yes, you may.
vote. I'm going to vote aye on your word, and especially with Senator Wheeler and Senator Thayer backing you up. Thank you.
Senator Storm,
Aye.
Senator Thayer, Senator Wheeler, Senator Williams,
I'm also going to vote aye, but I would like to have a conversation with the Kentucky Press Association at the request of one of my local county newspapers.
Senator Mills,
I vote aye. House Bill 534 passes with favorable expression, 8-0. Same shall pass on the Senate floor. We will leave this off the consent since there's a couple of questions to be answered here possibly, and we will move on. This moves on to the
No,
Senate floor. I'm sorry.
I'd make a motion for consent because we can always pull it off if there's a question, okay? So
All right, so
I'll
we
move
have
for consent.
So we have a motion for consent from Senator Williams, a second from Senator Thayer. All in favor, say aye on consent. Aye. Any opposed? Nope. It moves on to consent. Thank you so much. All right. Representative Bauman, I think he came into the room. Welcome. Come on up to the desk. This is House Bill 191. And House Bill 191 does have a committee sub, so if we could get that, we have a motion for the committee sub. Is there a second? Second on the committee sub? Second. We have a second from Senator Williams on the committee sub. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Committee sub is before us. Representative Bauman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen of the committee. It's a privilege to be in front of you today with House Bill 191. I'd like to introduce myself as Representative Jared Bauman from House District 28. And would you like to introduce yourself?
State Representative Rachel Rourke, District 38.
Welcome.
All right, I'm also very glad to report that this House Bill 191 passed unanimously on the House floor a couple weeks ago. The sub just clears up some language for the clerks to ensure that we hold the election on a Tuesday and helps them with what they need to determine ballot position for the special election. So House Bill 191 is going to move the appointment process in Louisville Metro government when we have a vacancy on Metro Council to a special election process. And this is very much desired across the council, across the county, and across this General Assembly in a bipartisan way. As I mentioned, it passed unanimously on the House floor, and one of your colleagues, Senator Yates, who is a former president of Louisville Metro Council, also supports this measure. And so if there are no questions, I would like to let Representative Rourke make some statements as well.
Thank you, Representative Bauman. So today I just wanted to keep my remarks brief, but this is a bipartisan bill in an effort to ensure that our constituents have a voice in who is representing them on the Louisville Metro Council. As many of you may know, I am a previous legislative aide at the Louisville Metro Council under former Councilwoman Nicole George, now Deputy Mayor. During that time, I had witnessed the appointment process up close and personal, had seen several constituents not served well by it, and ultimately, the voters and after the most recent round of appointment processes had asked for it to look different. That urge became stronger. This has been around for a long time, but we continue to hear more and more people who want this measure. So this is a great first step to ensure that we have a more democratic process to bring our electeds back to actually being elected.
Very good. We have a couple questions, Senator Thayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Representative Bauman, Representative Roarks. Good to see two freshman legislators of opposite parties before the committee today. Representative Roarks, I have a question for you. I think this is a good bill, but I just have a question for you since you worked in Louisville Metro Council. Are the candidates who run for Louisville Metro Council, are they nonpartisan or do they run according to their party affiliation in the great city of Louisville?
Thank you. Yes, they do run on a partisan ticket.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Thanks so much for answering my question.
Senator Nemus has a quick question. We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second from Senator Nemus and your question?
It's more of a comment. I wanted to welcome the two rookies to the state. And Ms. Roarks, you have a house seat that I used to have. And I drink coffee there at Sister Beans quite often. So thank you all.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more comments or questions from the board? If not, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Berg, Senator Harper Angel, Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel, Senator Nemus,
Aye.
Senator Storm,
Aye.
Senator Thayer, Senator Wheeler, Senator Williams, Senator Mills.
I vote aye. Very good. House Bill 191, as amended by committee sub, passes with favorable expression 9-0, and same shall pass on to the Senate floor. Is there interest in consent? Motion for consent. We have a motion for consent, a second from Senator Nemus. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Your bill moves on to the consent agenda. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you very much.
All righty. Our final item, and we have about 33 or 34 minutes, so let's try to keep our comments concise. But we have House Bill 302, Representative Branscombe and Decker. If you want to move to the table, okay.
Motion to adopt the committee substitute.
Do we have a second on the committee sub? We have a second from Senator McDaniel. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We have one no. Okay. The committee sub is before us. The Senate committee sub is before us. And Representative Decker, Branscombe, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the committee. It's always a pleasure to come and appear before you. As most of you know, during the past couple of years, Representative Branscombe, Representative Tipton, and I have worked on various election bills that have helped modernize, improve the integrity of our elections, and expand voter turnout. We passed House Bill 564, 574, and in doing so, we worked with a wide variety of people, the Secretary of State's office, the Kentucky County Clerks Association, the State Board of Elections, and various members of this committee. Today we want to talk about this bill that contains some language that helps clarify some of the intent from prior bills, correct some unintended consequences, and expand our efforts to ensure our elections are fair and transparent. If you'll permit me, I'll go through each change in the bill. In the first section, the bill directs the Office of the Attorney General to establish a uniform procedure and timeline for conducting independent election inquiries in all the counties at random. This section aims to ensure accountability and internal controls to ensure each audit is performed at how it's performed and the process that will be used. And it directs the Attorney General to create regulations to ensure that the inquiries are efficient and effective. Section 2 is in your committee sub, adds some additional language and Mr. Chairman, I'd like to yield to you to describe those changes.
Section 2 is the part where it it says the County Board of Elections may petition the Secretary of State to allow consolidation of precincts or consolidations of voting locations, and that is the change from the State Board of Elections, and that was part of what I consider a very important issue amongst our caucus, and it was something that we determined at our caucus retreat. That was a main focus of our caucus, to have one person that's going to approve voter locations, and that's going to be the Secretary of State in this sub. If there's anybody else that would like to comment on that, Senator Thayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there's a lot of talk out there about these voting centers, and to be honest, there are a lot of legislators who would just as soon blow up the whole voting center model and go back to the precincts. That's a real thing, and that bill was suggested. Then there are some people who want to leave it exactly as it is. I met with the clerks earlier this session. The wish on their part is to keep the voting center model. So I thought a good compromise was to bring in an elected official who's won a statewide election on the matter of integrity in elections and put that person in charge of the final sign-off rather than the Board of Elections, which none of those members have stood for election. Representative Decker, Representative Branscombe, you'll remember there was a meeting in my office on January 24th that included the two of you, Chairman Mills, myself, Representative Branscombe, and Senator Higdon, where we agreed to that very provision, along with language that's in the committee sub dealing with withdrawal and disqualified candidates. We had that issue in this past election in a few races where people got on the ballot after the primary. And then we also talked about the loophole in the law that allows electioneering on the early voting days. So we put the word entrance back in as the threshold for electioneering instead of property line and parking lot. So that was the agreement that we had on January 24th. I have notes from the meeting that the six of us agreed to those provisions. So I put those back in the committee sub, and I know that the clerks don't like it, but we get to set policy and they implement it. I've certainly taken their considerations up for consideration, but this is a middle way, and we're going to get the Secretary of State back involved in approving these voting plans one way or the other. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you. The next provision in the bill that changed is that we asked that when the boards of elections, when the county clerks submit their plans, they must include how many parking spaces are involved so that we can ensure that every voter will have access to the polls. The next provision deals with protecting the integrity by ensuring that while the polls are open, there will be no electioneering. That has always been the case for election day, but since the law now allows early in-person absentee voting, we extended those provisions for no electioneering to those days. The next change was an oversight from last year where we did not include no electioneering at any place where election officers were training during that training site. We want to ensure that they receive unbiased training, and so that is now prohibited. The next provision regards the candidate eligibility in general elections. Currently, there is a provision that's known as the sore loser. So you cannot run in the same election after you have lost a primary. We realize that there is a problem when the person who won the primary withdraws from the race. It may well be that the political party who is going to replace that person on the ballot opts for the person who lost the primary. So that will now be allowed. The next change deals with the replacement of candidates in general. It clarifies that when a candidate withdraws or is removed from the ballot after the primary, but before 10 days prior to the certification of the candidate, they may be replaced on the ballot. This provision just gets rid of any confusion as to the timeline when that must happen. The next change actually is something changed in the committee sub. The language was clarified in your sub that a Class D felon who has registered to vote and then gotten a felony, if they attempt to vote knowing that their rights have not been restored but are still without the right to vote, that will be a felony. The next change clarifies that if an elected official is charged with an ethics violation, this bill adds that the legal services in matters before the Legislative Ethics Commission can be paid for by campaign expenses if by campaign funds if the candidate is victorious in the ethics hearing. There is a change that currently political parties must file reports semi-annually. This bill would make it where a county which does not have more than $10,000 in their account would only have to file on an annual basis. The aim here is to reduce the burden of reporting requirements for smaller counties but still have transparency ensured. The last change is one that it states that if a candidate closes a campaign account and opts to donate remaining funds to a recognized 501c3 charitable organization, that charity cannot be one in which the candidate benefits financially. In conclusion, we appreciate the opportunity to present this bill, and we would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We appreciate the opportunity to be here in front of you for House Bill 302. You know, over the past 2 years, this legislature has passed sweeping and extensive election reform here in Kentucky. This bill is less expansive than what we've seen over the past two sessions, and it does address, as Representative Decker has mentioned, some concerns and challenges and some of the suggestions that have been brought up. One of the main things I think you'll notice in this bill is that this bill's had very minimal impact on our county clerks and our state board of elections. And I think that's essential that we allow our clerks and the state board to focus on implementing the policies that we put in place over the past couple of years and essentially kind of let them catch their breath and let what we've done the past couple of years start taking form. Our work with election reform, it's never over. It will continue, and we'll keep taking incremental steps to improve this process. And I appreciate Representative Decker and also Representative Rachel Roberts, who couldn't be here with us today, for just allowing me to tag along on the bill. So thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Senator Nemes has a question for you, and then we'll allow Ms. Clements to come up.
Yes, on Section 3, 3A, it used to be that you had to be 100 feet away from the entrance. Now it says 100 feet away from the building, and it says property line. So is that 100 feet from the property line or the building of the property? I understand that instead of the entrance, it's anywhere around the building, but who knows where the property line of that.
Thank you, Senator. That actually was changed in the committee sub to not have that change. It stays as it was.
So it's to the entrance, not the building or the property.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Ms. Clements, if you would like to come up. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Familiar face to our committee. Grace and Liz as well. Y'all can give your name for the record. Give the name for the record, and the floor is yours.
Good morning. I'm Tabitha Clemens, First Vice President of the Kentucky County Clerks Association and County Clerk in Grant County.
I'm Jason Denny, immediate past President of the County Clerks Association and the County Clerk in Anderson County.
Trey Grayson, former Secretary of State, legislative agent for the Clerks Association.
Very good. Thank you.
So, good morning. Thank you for allowing us to be here, and thank you for the work that this committee and the Senate and the House has put in over the last few years with election changes. We certainly appreciate that support. And in regards to House Bill 302, the election cleanup bill, we support this bill as it was approved in the House. Particularly, what the clerks strongly support is extending our electioneering prohibitions to include the absentee voting. We think that that is much needed. Certainly was an oversight and one that we want to make sure is clear to our constituents and voters. Requiring the Attorney General's office to share with clerks any finding from the post-election audits is important to us. We want to know what those findings were and try to improve upon anything that we need to or highlight the things that were done well. Including, we also want to make sure that we have sufficient parking. We know that this has been a concern for some of the locations that have been selected in the state. We want to make sure that that is addressed as well. Finally, we do not support giving the Secretary of State sole approval over the county election plans. We do support maintaining the current system, which requires the approval of the bipartisan State Board of Elections, which now includes 2 retired clerks, 3 Democrat members, 3 Republican members, and is chaired by the Secretary of State. The current system of approval works well. It's also approved by the County Board of Elections, which is made up of the county clerk who's elected, the sheriff who is elected, and then a member of each of the parties on a local level. When it goes to the state board, it's really interesting. I've always felt like the more eyes that we have on something, the better it's going to build our policy or our, in this case, our vote plans. For example, the State Board of Elections staff actually critiqued Jason's plan last year and helped him be more successful in the election because of their work in contacting him over his plan. So the more eyes we have on these plans, I think the better, the more involvement we have to perfect them and make them as best as they can be would be ideal. In Kentucky, we've definitely developed a distributed bipartisan system of election administration in which no one person, not at the county clerk level nor the Secretary of State level, can exercise too much control or power over our election process. We also built in bipartisanship by requiring both Democrats and Republicans at each voting location when they're serving as our election officers on our County Board of Elections and on our State Board of Elections. Giving the elected Secretary of State, no matter who's holding the office, this isn't anything particular with Secretary Adams. We appreciate Secretary Adams, but having that approval process and power is contrary to this long-standing system that we've had in place of election administration that has served our state very well. Additionally, with the committee sub, there's not an appeal process. So if there was the opportunity for the secretary to deny the plan, there's not the opportunity for the county clerk or the county board of elections to come back and appeal that process. So that's something that that we wanted to point out today. Additionally, with some recent rulings from the executive's branch ethics commission, it's quite likely that the commission would rule that giving such power to the Secretary of State would create a conflict of interest when the secretary is on the ballot. So we want to bring that concern forward as well. This year, several counties have modified their plans from what they used last year. This isn't a surprise to us since it was the first time that Kentucky, post-pandemic, have had the opportunity to create plans and have 3 days of early voting for our voters. Counties will continue to refine these plans over the next several years to make sure that we have the best experience for our voters possible. Ultimately, the voters in each county will hold their local elected officials, their county clerks, their county sheriffs, accountable for the success or the failure of these election plans. Thank you.
Very good. Any questions of the panel before us? Senator Nemes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, and I have quite a few questions
You're
today,
fine.
but I think that you like the bill, except for the Secretary of State against the election board. why didn't you speak against the committee sub instead of now speaking against the bill with the committee sub? So, is it a good bill with the committee sub, even though you don't like it or not? And I think it's good that someone has the final say, because there's a lot of county clerk, not a lot, but can be a county clerk that just takes the easy way out that we just can't accept. So can you answer that?
So I certainly think that, we just feel strongly that the state board having more eyes on the plans and having that approval process is important. That's a public meeting where the public can attend, county clerks can attend, our legislators can attend those meetings. And the secretary sits on the board as chair of the board. So definitely has a say in the plans at that level. So we would like to continue to see that happen.
Well, I understand your objection to that, but are you saying that the whole bill should be scrapped because of that one thing?
No, we're speaking out against the committee sub. In my first comments, I said that we support the House Bill 302, but we don't support the committee sub. Yes, sir.
Senator Thayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everyone should know that Tabitha is a constituent of mine and a good friend, and we work together very well, and her voting plan in Grant County is extraordinary.
I appreciate that.
I told you that there are a lot of people who want to blow up this voting center model. This is a compromise.
Understand.
And I'm told that right now there is one person making the decision, the executive director of the State Board of Elections, who's not elected, and that the board just goes along with it, 8-0. The Secretary of State is chairman of the board, but he doesn't have a vote, although we could certainly provide legislation to put that vote back in now that we have a Secretary of State who has a good reputation for doing a great job running our elections. So this is a compromise. I told you guys early this session that there are a lot of people who would just be just as happy to blow this vote center model up and go back to precincts. So you either get it with the committee sub or not at all. That's the way my position is right now.
And I want to confirm again what I said at the beginning, that this is, we talk about policy decisions as a caucus and as individuals. This is a major policy decision that we've had input from our caucus on and feel like this is the best way to move forward, and that's why the committee sub is the way that it is. Are there any other questions? Madam Clerk? Oh, we have a motion on the bill from Senator Thayer. Is there a second? Second from Senator McDaniel. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Byrd, Senator Harper Angel, Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel, Senator Nemus, Senator Storm.
Cast my vote and explain.
You may.
As the leader pointed out, I think a lot of these clerks do an excellent job. My clerk does an excellent job. But I also know it's a legislative process, and so for today, I'm going to cast an aye vote.
Senator Thayer, Senator Wheeler.
Mr. Chairman, cast my aye vote and explain.
Yes, you may.
I guess this is one of those situations that I like more of this bill than I don't. I do believe our county clerks do a wonderful job. I would probably prefer to get back more to a precinct model myself, but, this is, I guess, where we're at now, whether we like it or not. I have a constituent that is on the Board of Elections that I think does a great job, and I've not seen any problems with the way the current setup is working. But as commented by Senator Storm, this is a legislative process, and therefore I'm going to vote aye to keep the conversation going.
Senator Williams.
I'd like to explain my aye vote. I also have gotten called some clerks, and they are elected officials, and the principle that elected officials have ultimate says in their counties stands at the state level as too. I think this is sort of sharing power between two sets of elected officials. And there are other things in this bill as well that I think everybody agrees should happen. So that's why I'm voting aye.
Senator Mills.
I vote aye. House Bill 302, as amended by committee sub, passes with favorable expression. Same shall pass onto the Senate floor. It passes 8 Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. Thank you for your testimony. If there are not any other business, we will probably have one other committee this week, probably be our regular Wednesday noon committee meeting. So we stand adjourned.